Welcome back to the deep dive. We're here again to, cut through the noise and pull out the insights that really matter. Today, we're diving into something you hear about all the time, grit. But what is it, really? And maybe more importantly, how do you get more of it? Especially when, well, the world sometimes feels like it's pushing back against genuine perseverance.
That's the core question, isn't it? And our guide for this deep dive is Caroline Adams Miller's book, Getting Grit. It's a really fascinating exploration. It looks at the science behind grit, its surprising impact on success, well-being, all that stuff. It goes way beyond just the buzzword.
Absolutely. So our mission today, let's unpack this whole concept. Let's get past the hype and see what the research, what the real-world stories tell us about building authentic grit, the kind that actually changes things, and maybe separate it from the stuff that just looks like grit but isn't quite helpful.
Yeah.
Okay, let's jump right in. There's a story in the book that really made me pause. It's about the author's son, Haywood. He was a college swimmer, dedicated, but his GPA just, okay, average, really. Yet he lands this great accounting job at a top firm in a super tough market. It kind of flew in the face of, the usual path for that kind of career.
Right. And Miller uses that story to illustrate something bigger. A shift employers were noticing. They were seeing, well, a generation may be raised on a few too many participation trophies, struggling a bit in the working world, difficulty with feedback, maybe entitlement, that kind of thing. And this connects directly to Angela Duckworth's work. Her research on the grit scale is frankly groundbreaking. It's incredibly good at predicting who succeeds in really challenging situations. We're talking West Point dropouts, who makes it through, national spelling bee finalists, even things like how long marriages last or whether inner city students graduate college. It's powerful stuff.
Wow, and it's definitely caught on. Grit became this quality du jour, didn't it? Even President Obama was talking about it, making it an educational priority.
Yeah.
So with all that attention, what are we actually talking about when we say authentic grit? What's the definition we're working with?
Miller has a specific take. For her, authentic grit isn't just stubbornness. She defines it as the passionate pursuit of hard goals that awes and inspires others to become better people, flourish emotionally, take positive risks, and live their best lives. The key phrase there, it has to be a force for good.
A force for good. Okay, so it's not just about you succeeding, it's about lifting others up too.
Exactly. It has this outward ripple effect.
Which implies, well, that grit can be a force for bad, right?
Yeah.
If it's not channeled correctly.
Precisely. And the book gets right into this idea of bad grit. Miller actually breaks it down into 3 types.
Okay, let's unpack those. What's the first one?
First up is faux grit. This is basically faking it, pretending you've done hard things, or taking shortcuts just to get admiration. Think Brian Williams and those fabricated combat stories, or people buying fake military medals. It's about the appearance, not the substance.
I can see that.
In sports, it's doping. Like Lance Armstrong, that whole win at all costs thing. It completely corrupts the achievement. Or Michelle Smith, the swimmer. And in the corporate world, think Ford Pinto, cutting corners on safety to hit targets. Or Enron, Wells Fargo. These massive scandals often stem from chasing lofty goals, but, well, cheating to get there. Goals gone wild, basically.
So faux grit is deception masking as achievement. Got it. What's next?
The second category is stubborn grit. This is where the drive becomes almost maniacal. It leads to terrible decisions, often because ego takes over or there's this desperate need to win, even when warning signs are flashing red. Mountaineering has a term for it, summit fever, pushing for the peak in deadly weather just because it's there.
Right, I've heard of that.
Yeah, and there's a really tragic story the book mentions from the last dive. This father-son dive team, the Rouses, they died chasing the sunken U-boat, driven by what divers call rapture of the deep. It's like a euphoria that clouds your judgment. And in sports again, look at marathoner Ryan Hall. He essentially ended his career through overtraining. His body was screaming, stop, but that stubborn drive just pushed him past the breaking point.
So it's determination without wisdom, without knowing when to stop or change course.
Exactly. More isn't always better. That kind of grit can be self-destructive.
Okay, that makes sense. And the third type of bad grit?
That's selfie grit. As the name suggests, it's all about personal fame, self-promotion. Often it comes at the expense of the team or ethics. Robert O'Neill, the SEAL who identified himself as the one who shot bin Laden, that violated the whole quiet professionals ethos of the Special Forces. It was about his story. Or Johnny Manziel in the NFL, all the self-promoting, the money sign. It showed a lack of self-regulation and focus on himself over the team. Ultimately, it derailed his career. Selfie grit is really about chasing external validation, putting your own glory first. It's such a contrast to genuinely greedy people. They're usually the first to credit their team, their supporters. They say, we, not I.
That's a great point. It really shows how dangerous that drive can be if it isn't balanced with things like honesty, humility, kindness. It needs that moral core, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Without it, the pursuit can become toxic.
So this raises a big question the book tackles.
Mhm.
Why does it feel like we're seeing more of this bad grit and maybe less of the authentic kind? What's going on in the 21st century?
Yeah, the book connects this to some broader societal shifts. One point it raises, and this is a critique you hear sometimes, is about a generation maybe struggling with entitlement or feedback. This is sometimes linked back to aspects of the self-esteem movement. The idea being maybe the focus shifted too much towards feeling good rather than earning it through effort, leading some to value fame over meaning or look for shortcuts.
Okay, I've definitely heard discussions around that. It's a complex issue.
It is. And another trend the book points to is this. Well, erosion of standards. Grade inflation is one example. That Ohio community with 222 valedictorians, that's something. Or schools deciding not to recognize achievements like National Honor Society because they don't want to alienate others. There's even a story about a prestigious school discontinuing an academic award because parents were demanding inflated grades, so often it became meaningless.
Wow. That feels like it sends a strange message about excellence.
Doesn't it? And then there's the whole bubble-wrapped lives idea, parents trying to shield kids from any hardship, helicopter parents, snowplow parents, banning dodgeball, worrying about any critical comment. The book even mentions schools reportedly offering fake report cards so kids wouldn't feel bad.
Fake report cards.
Yeah.
Seriously, that seems extreme. Like avoiding discomfort at all costs.
It leans that way, and you see echoes of it in higher education with the debates around safe spaces and trigger warnings. The source notes instances of intellectual fragility, students complaining about microaggressions, speakers being disinvited, Condoleezza Rice, even Barack Obama, because some felt hearing opposing views was unsafe, which contrasts sharply, the book notes, with someone like Justice Scalia, who deliberately hired clerks who disagreed with him to sharpen his own thinking.
A very different approach to intellectual challenge.
And then you get the really out there examples, emotional support animals everywhere, even pigs on planes, paying professional cuddlers for comfort. The book presents these as illustrations of a wider trend, seeking external comfort, avoiding internal discomfort, rather than building that inner resilience.
So if we're in a culture that sometimes downplays excellence or shields people from challenge, what does that mean for us? For society?
Yeah.
It really makes you wonder, in a world like this, how do we build the kind of grit that actually helps us thrive?
Right.
If bad grit is the warning sign, how do we cultivate the good stuff? The book uses this great metaphor, baking the grit cake. It's not instant, right? It's a process with key ingredients.
Exactly. It's an ongoing practice. And the first, maybe most fundamental ingredient is passion and purpose. Real grit starts there, with a dream, a deep-seated passion.
Okay, passion, that makes sense. But how do you know if it's the right passion, not just something you feel you should do?
That's a great question. Miller suggests this simple test, the so what then test. Keep asking yourself that about a goal. Does it lead somewhere meaningful to you? This helps you find those intrinsic goals, the ones that truly resonate, versus the should goals pushed on you by others. Research also talks about harmonious versus obsessive passion. Harmonious passion, like Bill Bradley balancing basketball, studies, politics, it fits with the rest of your life. Obsessive passion, maybe like Michael Phelps early on, can kind of take over everything else. Interestingly, having two harmonious passions seems to be even better for well-being.
That's really useful. Finding passion that fits, not consumes. And the book gives examples, right?
Yeah, like Wayne Pacell's animal rights work, pure passion driving massive change. Or Angelique, who switched from accounting back to nursing, rediscovering a passion she'd ignored. It helps you focus on what genuinely sparks joy for you.
Okay, so passion is the spark, but you need to fuel it. Which brings us to ingredient number 2, goal setting. And not just any goals, right? Gritty people set hard goals.
Definitely hard goals. Think Google X aiming for self-driving cars when it seemed impossible. That's the level of ambition. Goals do critical things. They direct your attention, they energize you, and harder goals are actually more energizing. Surprisingly, they fuel persistence and they force you to learn new skills, master things.
Like Katie Ledecky in swimming.
Exactly like Ledecky. Her coaches talked about her insatiable intensity even as a kid. The stove is running hot, they said. She wasn't just talented, she set these incredibly tough goals for herself. That's what drove her. For listeners wanting a practical tool, Jordan Peterson's maps of meaning exercises, the past and future authoring, are mentioned as really powerful for clarifying goals. Studies showed they cut dropout rates for at-risk students.
And it's not just personal goal setting. Accountability is huge, isn't it?
Mhm.
Coaches, mentors, those mastermind groups.
Absolutely critical. Miller credits her own mastermind group for helping her persevere through writing the book. Shared goals, mutual support, it makes a massive difference.
Okay, passion, hard goals, accountability. What's ingredient 3?
Self-regulation and willpower. And here's where the science gets really interesting. We all know the marshmallow test, right? Walter Mischel study. Kids who could resist the marshmallow did better, later SAT scores. Fewer addictions, happier lives. Delayed gratification matters. Think about President Obama wearing only blue or gray suits. That wasn't about fashion. It was about reducing decisions to conserve mental energy, preserve willpower for the big stuff.
Decision fatigue.
Right, exactly. Roy Baumeister's research suggests willpower is like a muscle. It gets tired. Judges give harsher sentences later in the day, apparently. But the good news is you can restore it. Glucose helps, so does sleep, laughter, even just being around other people who are showing self-control.
That's hopeful. It's not just fixed.
Not at all. Look at Carlin Pipes, the swimmer. She achieved incredible things after overcoming alcohol addiction. Getting sober gave her back that self-regulation, reignited her passion. She set over 200 Masters world records. But, modern life makes this hard. Constant notifications, instant everything. It creates what some call attention deficit trait, or ADT. It drains our ability to focus and regulate.
So what's fascinating here is that even small habits like Obama suits can help conserve that mental energy, building momentum for bigger goals. It's about managing that finite resource.
Precisely. Ingredient number 4, risk-taking and learning from failure. Grit isn't about playing it safe. It's about stepping out there, knowing you might fall flat. But gritty people, they don't seem to fear failure in the same way. Ledecky's coach said something like, Katie isn't afraid of failure, but failure isn't an option. It's this mindset of calculated risk, but unwavering belief. They bet on themselves.
I love that. And the book has examples of embracing failure, right?
Oh, yeah. Sarah Blakely, the Spanx founder, her dad used to ask her and her brother at dinner, what did you fail at this week? And if they didn't have anything, he'd be disappointed. He gave them high fives for failure, reframing it as learning.
That's brilliant parenting.
Isn't it? And Jim Donald, the CEO who gave out get-out-of-jail-free cards to encourage risk-taking after a bankruptcy, it sends a message. Trying and failing is okay, even necessary.
So this raises an important question for you listening. Are you avoiding risks? Or are you seeing failures as data points, as ways to get smarter?
The advice is start small, take manageable risks, and maybe don't share your biggest goals with people who are likely to shoot them down. Protect that initial spark.
Good advice. Okay, ingredient 5 is humility. This one feels maybe counterintuitive. Grit seems so forceful and humility seems quiet. How do they fit?
Yeah, it does seem like an odd pairing at first, but it's presented as absolutely crucial. The book tells a story about Michael, this successful entrepreneur. He realized his own arrogance was actually blocking his progress on a new venture. He had to learn humility, listen more, talk less to get the right people on board. And this echoes Jim Collins's good to great findings. The most enduring, successful companies, led by humble CEOs, people who built strong teams, admitted mistakes, shared credit.
So humility isn't weakness, it's strength.
Exactly. There are 2 types discussed. Social humility, honesty, not being selfish, and intellectual humility, being curious, open to new ideas, knowing you don't know everything. And what's fascinating here is how humility acts like social oil. It helps teams cooperate, especially under pressure. Think of that boys in the boat rowing crew, no stars, just collective, humble effort winning Olympic gold.
That makes sense. But the book mentions downsides too, right? Like a double bind for women.
It does nuance it. Women leaders are often expected to be more humble, but then that same humility can be misinterpreted as lacking confidence. It's tricky. And then there's enforced humility, like tall poppy syndrome, cutting down success to make everyone equal, or schools abolishing honors. That can stifle ambition.
So it's about genuine humility, not forced conformity.
Right. And a practical tip, practice active, constructive responding. Genuinely celebrate someone else's success. It builds your humility and strengthens the relationship. toot someone else's horn.
I like that.
Oh.
Okay, I've got passion, goals, self-regulation, risk-taking, humility. Now, you hit roadblocks. That's where perseverance comes in, right? Just sticking with it.
The relentless commitment, yes. Paul Thomas, the martial arts sensei in the book, really embodies this. His whole school is built on daily, disciplined practice. The message is, you are never finished here, just like in life.
It's that daily grind.
It is. And overcoming procrastination is key. Techniques like just not letting the idea of skipping practice enter your mind, or visualizing the goal as already completed, that temporal myopia, in reverse, it pulls you forward. Maria Parker, the cyclist, used tiny, achievable goals during long rides, celebrating each small win internally. That keeps you going.
Little victories.
Yeah. And motivational language helps too. Simple phrases like, get up, helped one athlete fight depression. Or slogans from 12-step programs. And this idea of acting as if, football player Josh Norman adopting superhero personas, the author herself drawing strength from being a Hapkido white belt or a mascot. It's about embodying the resilience you want.
Even virtual reality is being used now.
Right, like Strive for Soldiers, using avatars to practice resilience. It's about shaping your mindset through action and environment. High achievers often use the early bird advantage, and unfinished goals have this pull the Zeigarnik effect. They keep nagging you.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, it's about surrounding yourself with gritty examples,
Yeah.
making perseverance contagious.
Exactly. Like that Stall Street Journal idea in school, sharing stories of resilience right there in the bathroom stalls. It normalizes overcoming challenges.
Okay, one last ingredient, patience. This feels like the hardest one today. In a world of instant everything, patience seems antique.
It really does.
Yeah.
But think about the scientists who spent a century proving Einstein's gravitational waves. That's patience on an epic scale. Contrast that with, ordering pizza with an emoji, fast-forwarding ads, binge-watching shows. We're trained out of waiting.
So how do we train ourselves back in?
The book suggests there's real value in learning to wait. Remembering saving up for something as a child, the anticipation made it more special, right? It contrasts French parenting, which often emphasizes teaching kids to wait, with maybe some American approaches where impatience is more tolerated. Nick McGreevy's story is great here, his long-term commitment to basketball and then to nuclear fusion research. These huge, complex goals require incredible patience.
So we need to practice waiting.
Essentially, yes. Find activities that require it. Play chess, it demands focus, planning, slow thinking. Plant a garden, you can't rush nature. Even just waiting in line at a popular restaurant without complaining, embracing the pause, it builds that muscle.
Chess, gardening, waiting in line, I can see that. Okay, so those are the ingredients. Passion, goals, self-regulation, risk-taking, humility, perseverance, patience. That's the cake. What's the ultimate payoff? Where does happiness fit in?
This is maybe the most profound part. The research Miller cites flips the script. It suggests we don't become happy after we succeed. We succeed precisely because we are happy first.
Whoa. Okay, happiness comes first.
That's the idea. It links to the PERMA model of well-being: positive emotions, engagement, flow, relationships, meaning, and achievement. Happiness fuels the grit needed for achievement.
And relationships are huge in PERMA, right? That Harvard study conclusion. Happiness is love, full stop, or other people matter.
Absolutely central. And the A for achievement, it's not just about winning. It's about pursuing those meaningful, purposeful goals we talked about. That sense of mastery brings deep satisfaction.
So how do we boost that foundational happiness to fuel our grit?
The book offers concrete, evidence-based strategies, wise interventions. Things like using your signature strengths in new ways each week, practicing gratitude, keeping a journal, writing gratitude letters, even just reframing challenges, cultivating spirituality, whatever that means to you, getting coaching, it's shown, to boost hope and happiness, and physical exercise, especially outdoors. It's a powerful mood booster.
Those are really practical steps. It makes you think. What stands out to you listening right now as one tangible thing you could do, one step to bring more happiness, more authentic grit into your life starting today? Wow, what a deep dive. We've really unpacked grit, haven't we? Moved past the simple definition, explored the dark side, and looked at how to build the real thing. It's clear it's not just about personal ambition. It's about that passionate, purposeful drive that has a positive impact.
And the hopeful message, I think, is that it can be learned. It can be cultivated. Miller's own story, overcoming bulimia and finding her purpose later in life, is proof of that. It's not something you're just born with or without.
Absolutely. So the final thought for you is this. You have a lifetime ahead. The chance to make a difference for yourself and others is right now. When you look back one day, what story do you want to tell? What change will you have made? It's never too late to start building that authentic, resilient self. to start creating a story worth telling.